Hello everyone, Loremaster Sotek here. I apologize if there's noise in the background, just recording this real quick. This is the first episode of the roleplay. If you haven't already, I would heavily advise going to watch the introductory video I made that came out on Thursday before you watch this. I know the audio is a little fucky, but obviously I didn't realize TeamSpeak would sound like that because we use TeamSpeak because one of our players cannot use Discord. So I will work on optimizing the sound for next time, so hopefully it doesn't bother you too much. It's just a little echoey, and of course my mic is a little sensitive, so I think you can like hear me breathing. So I'll mess with some things to make it better, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I'm splitting it up into 30-minute segments, and the first session was about 4.5 hours, so that's like 9 segments. So yeah, hope you all enjoy watching. Bye. Alright, so welcome everybody, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're a player here today. We are starting the roleplay here. As far as those of you who are listening on YouTube, there will not be music for me on this episode, so if you want there to be background music, do it yourself. And I will be rolling in secret whenever I roll for NPCs or monsters or whatever. But to keep it interesting for those of you watching on YouTube, I will say out loud what I rolled for them, because I have physical dice that are very, very fancy. That way y'all get to know what I'm rolling, but the players don't. So they get to die without realizing it until I tell them.
So, it's not as usual.
I say that, and now I'm like, where did I... Oh, there are my dice. Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of upset. My dice went missing when I moved. I haven't found them yet.
Because I got the starter edition dice for the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Starter Edition. They're all fancy. Alright, so, as y'all know, also if you're watching on YouTube, go watch the intro video because I'm not going to go over any of that information, so if you don't know what's going on, it's your fault. Alright, so...
Can we do a roll call for them?
Yeah, be sure you set your name in the chats. That way it shows up as your character, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you follow along on the right in case you see characters talking. Y'all should be able to read it. If not, make your screen bigger. In any event, think we're pretty much good to go. So, you all have arrived slowly but surely, and in your own ways, to the city of Jeddenburg, which, if we of course reference the fancy map, is in that itty bitty red square on the map here in Reichland. And your goal is to, through whatever means possible, get to within the blue square, which is where the village of Hagerdorf lies.
How far is that trip? Because I don't see a scaling on this map.
It's a good number of miles. It's a multi-day trip.
Fair enough.
Just because the road is not great. That being said, your adventure starts with you all arrive in Jeddenburg with fairly minimal issues. Some of you decided to do a small amount of role-playing before the campaign began. Nothing super important, but because of it, some of you maybe lost a little money or had a small little shenanigan happen, verse that. And, oh yeah, just a quick normal roll call. If everyone could, like, identify their name that we call you by and your character's name real quick, just so people can associate voices, that'd be great. So we'll start with you, Fao.
I'm Fao, and I play Drek.
Okay, who is the Norskin dwarf? Cold?
I'm Cold. I play Verb, the Wood Elf.
Great. Aztec?
I am Aztec, and I play the human bright wizard Verstadt.
And then Ben.
And I'm Ben, and I play the halfling.
Risk Fumblefoot.
His name is Wrist.
Wrist. I always keep calling him Risk. All right.
That's not
that isn't an inherent pun.
It seems like it is. All right. So, Jettenberg, you're not staying in for long, but through various shenanigans or what have you, you've all arrived and ended up at the Pickled Troll Inn, which is where you're supposed to meet up with someone somehow to get travel to the village of Hagerdorf, where the Silverwood lumbering company has set up shop for the time being. And you can always, of course, refer back to your employment letter, which is in your handouts.
I'm reading right now.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say that the people who were traveling by boat, which would be Verv and Vertstadt, y'all are going to arrive in the Pickle Troll Inn first. And the only thing you know is that you're supposed to arrive there and somehow, some way, find someone who's going to get you out.
Okay.
So take it away. And the first time you roleplay your character, if you wouldn't mind physically describing them, that'd be great.
Oh yes, this.
Everyone's favorite part, but you only have to do it once.
Never doing this again, YouTube. Just refer back to this damn video.
So I will, Verv will look to Verstadt and say, the Pickled Troll Inn. What a unique name.
I agree.
Do you think they actually pickled the troll?
That wouldn't be sanitary at all. So Verstadt, who I am, has black charcoal hair. It's shaved on the sides, long in the middle, kind of going down to the back. He wears it pulled back. His eyes are the color of charcoal as well. He's around 20 years of age. He's middle of stature, around like 5'10", 180 pounds. He's dressed fairly plainly, boots, breeches, belt, and a shirt, but it's colored really brightly. So his shirt's a bright crimson, his pants are sizzling orange, his boots give off an impression of soot and coal. He has a necklace of iron keys that dangle from his neck. He has a book that is manacled to his arm. And that is about it, I think.
Great.
Staff.
Verv stands around 5'11". She is hooded and kind of covered in kind of wood elfish style colors, so leafy greens and browns. Her skin is like an ivory along with her eyes and hair. It's just kind of all kind of flows into one almost marble statue kind of image. But she does have several tattoos underneath her left eye and on her forehead, and the rest of her, on the visible parts of her skin, seem to have these little crawling red markings all across her flesh, down her throat, and on her arms and pieces that are visible. Other than that, she carries a tall quarterstaff, and she has learned to hide her ears inside her hood and hair.
Okay, great. So the both of you have arrived to the inn. Is there anything you would like to do?
Sure. So right before we enter the inn, I'm just going to say to Verv, if you see anyone giving us the eye, make sure to tell me and we'll get out of here. And then we push open the door and enter the inn.
What do you mean by giving us the eye? I'm always given the eye.
You know what? That's true. Giving us the extra eye, I guess.
All right, you enter into the Pickle Troll Inn, and despite its name, it's a surprisingly warm atmosphere. It's definitely not somewhere nobles would likely go to on the regular, but it seems like the kind of place that's been carefully designed so that the middle class of Jettenberg can enjoy it, as it is one of the bustling imperial cities that actually can afford to have a middle class in these new and exciting times. Oh, and speaking of time, this campaign is officially beginning in the year 2520. So,
I should probably write that down.
It's not that important. What is important is that y'all are in late summer, early fall.
I shall definitely write that down.
Yeah, so y'all are around like the end of August-ish.
What year did you say it was? Sorry.
2520. Which TLDR just means you're in common era, nothing crazy. You're not going to be able to predict something happening in the campaign by looking at the lore.
No, I'm just curious and have it all down.
Cool. All right. So anyway, as you walk into the inn, it has a fairly warm and friendly atmosphere, but the people inside, there's not a lot of them. You have arrived kind of in the middle of the day when most of the drinking is only by those who have problems or have nowhere better to be. So everyone inside is kind of kept to themselves and seemingly miserable lot. You do notice that there is a very elderly woman working the bar at the other end of the room from where you come in, and she kind of looks your way, but she has one of those eyes where one of her eyes faces forward and the other one is definitely looking off to a bizarre degree, and it's a little difficult to gauge which one is the one that actually looks forward and which one is the one that definitely doesn't. But one thing that does catch your attention is when you look along the wall, you do see 6 troll heads mounted, and it looks like something has been done to them, and you're hoping it's not pickling, but something's been done to theoretically preserve them, because for better or worse, they still have their flesh on, though it looks very waxy.
So I said to Verve real quick under my breath, "This isn't sanitary at all, like I said."
Well, I highly doubt we'll be eating them. Or staying here for long, for that matter.
I hope so. So we will approach the barmaid, you said she was?
Yeah.
All right, we will approach with our poster in hand.
All right. She stops cleaning off the bar for a minute, and she kind of looks up at the two of you for a long time and says, "You aren't regulars around here, are you?"
No, we wouldn't happen to be regulars. On the Reich, we found this poster here, looking for employment. Would you happen to know anything about this? And we present the poster.
She looks down and then spits off to the side with no regard for where it lands and says, "More freaks and vagabonds looking to go work. Take a seat."
Excuse me?
She looks at you and her eye kind of narrows, and she goes, "You heard what I said. Go sit by the door. They'll come by to collect you. Don't start any trouble or I'll have you thrown out."
May I ask who will be coming to collect us? What they may look like?
She kind of scoffs and goes, "It's a different person every time. None of my business and none of yours till they show up. Sit down and shut up."
Thank you, ma'am. We take no offense, and we will
We
wander
don't?
off. No, we don't. We don't. I'm a patient man, Verve. You know.
Uh-huh. I have seen your patience.
Well, once the patience is expended, it's expended. But until then, I am patient, and we will walk to an open table.
All right, she stares for a long time at your backs, but goes back to various tasks to prep for that night's work. All right, at this point, Drek, you finally found it after wandering around this horrible town of manlings that write all their script in Reichsbill, which, can you read?
Yep. I can read or write.
All right, so you can read Reichsbill. You're certainly not terribly familiar with it because it's just an offshoot of a dialect you actually understand, being from Norska. So the fact that they've based their language off of Kasselid, which is different enough to cause you pause, it basically looks like a bastardized child's idiot's version of your own tongue. But you managed to find your way to the Pickled Inn without too much trouble.
Okay. So the door opens rather roughly, but he's not slamming it open, and in walks a giant of a dwarf. And no, that is not an oxymoron, because Drax stands over 5 feet tall, and is very broadly built, and he has his hair, the hair on the top of his head kind of spikes upward as if like intended that way, and his beard comes down to about the middle of his chest because he's not a particularly old dwarf. His hair being like an icy snow white, and on his what you can see of his arms underneath his traveling tunic and leather armor, he has several blue tattoos peeking out of Kazalid runes, and in a icy blue ink, because if I roll a fucking ice theme, I'm going with it. And so Drac walks up to the bar pausing to look appreciatively at the troll heads before ordering a beer.
All right. As the woman turns from putting up a glass to see you, she goes, "Oh, Master Dwarf, what a pleasant surprise! Would it just be? Is there a particular stout you're looking for?"
Whatever you have.
She
Not familiar with your southern ales.
She nods and says, "I've got some fresh kegs right out of Carrick Norn. I'll get you one now."
Drac nods.
All right, she goes to fill up a glass and sets it down and says, "That'll be 3 brass, dearie."
He puts a silver on the table and says, "I assume you can break this."
She nods and says, "Oh, of course, of course." And the silver disappears in a flash, and she, after a few minutes of moving around through some satchels she has placed carefully within reach of a series of what look like kitchen implements but could easily double for rather horrific weapons, she returns 9 brass to you.
Drac nods appreciatively and starts drinking the beer, which I assume is not quite up to his quality, but it's eh.
It's a little different from what you're used to. It's definitely dwarven. It doesn't taste watered down. It kind of has some exotic flavoring that's a little odd. Up in Norska, you'd kind of gotten used to your Norskan dwarves tended to supplement taste with just raw power. So you're still getting kind of used to the fact that Southern Dawi tend to actually put notable flavors and zest in their beers to make them.
And the beer does not feel like it's kicking you in the gut.
Yeah, you could probably drink the keg and would be surprised if you got laid out by it. That being said, it's not bad, it's just different. Compared to what you drank in Karak, it's not that great, but it's better than anything you've had since you left the mountains.
Drac nods to the bartender, and before staring up at the trolls' heads, it's estimating the size of the original trolls based off the head, from the remains of the head.
It's hard to say exclusively based off their heads, because especially being from Norska, you have seen some freakish trolls as far as body dynamics go. But if they're anything like the common trolls that you've seen just wandering around, like you've seen during your days in Karasakarak, they were probably fairly decent sized. Whoever killed them must have either known what they were doing, or it was probably a regiment of men knowing them.
These heads come from the woods or the mountains?
She looks up, she goes, that depends on the troll. Most of them are not too far out of town. She points at one that's kind of a ugly mucus green and says, that one was the Juttendorf menace. I was a little girl when he was brought down.
Looks to be some fine kills.
She nods and says, They are. That's why I always appreciate good dwarf patrons. It was some of our dwarven friends from the Grey Mountains that brought down that beast.
Sounds about right. There are a bunch of those wandering around. Should make my travels in these woods a bit more bearable.
She nods and says, "Where are you due, Master Dwarf?"
Wandering doing the ranger's work. Wandering the Hager Crypts are next on the list.
Her mood sours a little bit. She kind of falls silent for a moment, and she leans forward and she says, I wouldn't go to the Hager Crypts, Master Dwarf, if you can avoid it. There's bad folks up there."
Well, if there's bad folks, then we need to know. Gotta know where the caravans can and can't go, otherwise the trade doesn't flow.
She sighs and says, "Been too many people going there and not enough coming back, if you catch my drift. Nobody trades into the Hager Crypts."
Aye, but people can mine there, so...
She sighs somewhat and says, I take it you're going with the caravan to Hagerdorf, then.
If it's the most convenient way, yes.
She nods and says, unless you're a master ranger, which you may well be, I never doubt a dwarf. If you're wanting to go with the caravan, she points to two, one hooded figure and a man who are... The man in particular is rather flamboyantly dressed as far as Imperial men go, even compared to some you've seen. He looks almost more like a Bretonian, due to the colors he's bearing. She kind of gestures over at them and says, you'll have to join them at their table. That's where they pick up from.
That's some kind of dandy, like they call them.
She narrows her eyes and says, some backwards traveler. He's got some kind of... I don't know what's with him, but I ain't seen it.
That's
some kind of
seen
witch.
Someone dressed like they were a sign saying, "See me here, shoot me."
She chuckles and says, he reminds me of some of those wildly dressed state troopers when they come marching through on the way south. All their reds. It's like they're trying to get shot.
Oh, I mean, at least you know they're not cowards. Or they're just idiots, but those are not exclusive.
She nods and says, well, if you need anything else, dearie, just call me over. My name's Helga.
Will do. And Drac just saunters, holding his mug, he walks over the table and sits down, staring at the other two, waiting for them to say something.
Oh, hello, Master Dwarf. How can we help you? Drac, how can we help you, Drac?
Heading into the Hagerkirps.
Yes, we are, actually.
And we're going the same way.
Really?
Your
That
name,
is-
Manling. And Drac holds his rather massive hand over across the table.
Verstadt hesitantly holds out his own hand and says, my name would be Verstadt, and this here, and then hesitates to say Verb's name.
I will turn my head and look at the dwarf fully in the eyes and wait
Can I
for
tell
what
this
I
is enough?
expect.
Yes, elves are not human enough looking to get away with it. So, okay, you pass your racism check. Good job.
Drac, his eyes raise a bit. Say, you one of those those poncy ones or the wood ones? Been told there's a bit of a difference down here south.
I belong with the forest ones.
Then you might be useful.
That is more understanding than I've heard some of your kind can be, Master Dwarf. Thank you.
I'm from the north. We take a rather more practical view of things. If you shoot chaos and greenskins and not me, I don't care.
The north, past the Kizavites, really?
Yes, hail from Krakadrak.
You don't say.
Stalwart to the north.
No wonder you're so tall. Is that how all the dwarves in the north are?
No, I'm just tall.
Oh, okay.
All right, Risk. You finally found it after making sure you haven't been followed and kind of bummed out that you didn't get the job you had applied for so desperately and honestly and truthfully. You don't understand what they didn't see in you. But nonetheless, you have arrived at the side job that you saw advertised about.
Well, you gotta make do. So, Rist, wearing his completely legitimate watch uniform taken from Bogenhofen, with a poorly carved wooden badge version of the town's heraldry on it, will walk into the Pickled Troll. Hello everyone! It's a nice, fine end of summer day, isn't it? Oh, isn't the weather nice? Oh, no, don't get up for me. He will look at whoever gets up at seeing a halfling come in. I'm sure someone failed their racism check.
Nobody gets up, actually. Most of the people seem pretty into their cups. However, your outburst has drawn everyone's eyes to you.
Ah, good day. Don't worry. Not here officially. Out of town and everything. Not my jurisdiction. And he will walk over towards the bar.
All right, as you approach, Helga squints like she's thinking. And she doesn't really say anything until you get really, really close, and she says, I already paid for this week.
Ah, don't worry. Not here to collect. No, in fact, I'm here to offer payment. What's your special? Actually, you know what? Let's go with serendipity. This is the pickled troll, right? Do you have any pickled eggs? I think I could have one. As long as it's not one of the trolls, eh? And he will wink at her.
She rolls her eye, and when I say that, you notice that she literally only manages to roll her normal eye somehow. And she says, yeah, it'll be 1 brass. You think you're the first who's made that joke? Halflings.
No, but it's a pretty great joke you set up. I approve.
She goes into the back and vanishes for
What's
about...
your name?
Huh?
Oh, Aztec. Forgot to change his name in the chat.
Oh, okay, yeah. She vanishes into the back for a minute and comes out with the food you requested, and it actually looks pretty decent. She puts it out and she says, that'll be 1 brass, and don't go until I check it. I ain't being fooled again by your counterfeit nonsense.
I would, as a legitimate man of the watch, would never counterfeit any coin. If I have it, it's some skivy bugger gave it to me instead of proper due wages and taxes.
She holds out her hand expectantly.
I will give her a non-counterfeit coin.
Okay, she looks at it very carefully, and then tastes it, and then bites it, and then looks at it again, and then runs it under some water real quick, and then nods and says, all right, what do you want?
Oh, I heard from the cousin's cousin that there's some auto person here who's looking for people who need work, or rather who need stalwart, brave, and very efficient guards and people.
Her eyebrow inches up with every verb or adjective you decide to toss in there, and then she finally just sort of nods her head over at the table in the back where you see a dwarf, a man, and some hooded individual sitting.
I will give her a gracious nod and turn to walk through the table, trying to stand as tall as I can using all 3 feet and 5 inches of my height. As I walk over towards the table.
Drac, as far as you're concerned, there is a human child approaching the table that has a bizarrely low voice.
We've been talking.
Okay.
And facial hair. I have a mutton chops.
I asked what the weird thing is, and the elf explained.
Ah, are you all looking for work too? Why, we're practically workmates as it is. Why don't we all sit down, and we'll say hopping up and pulling out some cards. Have a nice friendly card game while we wait. You all seem upstanding sorts.
Verstadt will stand up and gesture with his hand to an open seat. Sit down, Mr. Halfling. Sit down, please.
You can call me Wrist. No need to be formal.
Wrist, did you say?
Yeah, Wrist.
Pleasure to meet you.
R-I-S-T. Or so I understand. Never really knew what all the words meant, all the letters meant. But told that's how it's supposed to be spelled.
I certainly believe you. I am Verstadt.
Alright, well, hello Verstadt, you in?
Welcome to the table, Master Wrist.
Oh, master. No need to master me. I'm just a lowly watchman.
But
What
you
would
can
your
count.
name be?
You can count me out of cards. My name is Verve.
Well, if you need help, I'm fine playing a game just to show you the ropes. You wouldn't want to miss out, would you?
I know the ropes Wrist. It's deceit that I have
we
an
wouldn't
issue
want
with.
the cheating type anyways, he will say and turns towards the dwarf. Are you in, Mr. Dwarf?
Not if you're going to cheat.
I would never cheat. That is a lion
Drax
slander
reaches
spread
up and
about by my
drops his
cousin
axe
Stan
on the
because
table.
he is...
for a moment before picking it up and putting it away.
You have an axe. Is that your ante?
No. Just a reminder.
I wouldn't condone murder within town. It's right frowned upon, Mr. Dwarf.
The axe has several sides. Only one of them kills.